Welcome back to Bullshit Creepypasta Storytime, where I'm no longer burdened by long Sonic stories that have little or nothing to do with Sonic, meaning I can in good conscience continue reading other stories of questionable quality, as God intended. And there's no better way to start than with Pokemon Dead Channel, which has the word dead right in the middle of its title, so it has to be scary because it would be lying otherwise. I was introduced to the video game realm a tad later than most other people. For most, if not all of my early childhood, I was isolated from other kids and had next to no social interactions, emphasis on that no thing. My days were spent in a prison-like school, otherwise known as school, and my nights rotted away with mind-numbing TV. Life was dull and boring, and all I had were my stuffed animals and cheap plastic toys to talk to. Conversations that I'm sure were enthralling, but that's when I got a Gamecube. Now I'm gonna talk to that. It was the Christmas of 2003, I believe. God forbid you fact-check your own story, but I was overjoyed at having my own video game station. It came with the games Super Mario Sunshine, Pac-Man World 2, and Pokemon Channel. Each of those games still hold a special place in my heart today. As soon as the GameCube was set up and ready to go, I began playing with it immediately, playing with the handle. The first game I played was Super Mario Sunshine. This game is what got me hooked on the Mario series. Author loves to clean, clearly, but after playing it for hours straight and finally finding a level I couldn't get past, I turned to Pac-Man World 2. Don't feel the need to be specific about Mario, by the way, in your story, but yes, Pac-Man World 2. Amazingly enough, I got stuck on level 2. Well, you're not very good. Infuriated that I couldn't find the way out, even though the answer was literally right in front of my eyes. Don't worry, I won't fill you, the reader, in on what's going on, so I quit and started playing my first ever Pokemon game, Pokemon Channel, an incredibly questionable place to start. As soon as I turned the game on, I knew this game was going to be different from the other two. Wait, you just said that this was your first Pokemon game, and also I think that there were at least 2 other Pokemon games before this one, but it didn't take me long to fall in love with the game. The smell of the disc captivated him. When the time came for me to name my Pikachu, I unwittingly named him BRVR, or Berber, short for brother, if brother had the letter V in it somewhere. Sadly, it doesn't, so the author's lying. What compelled me to give him such a strange nickname that didn't even sound like a shortened version of brother, I'll never know. That inner monologue could have been left out of the story, but regardless, I still enjoyed playing. There's no way for me to describe the love I felt towards the game, which means this is going to be a very difficult story to write, but it was everything I had ever dreamed of. Author setting his aspirations very, very low. In this game, I had a friend that I could play with. It all took place in the Pokemon world too, which I had already loved before I even got Pokemon Channel. What with me having played none of the games prior to Pokemon Channel, but I could watch the TV with my best friend, Berber. Go fishing with him, play tic-tac-toe with him, talk to other Pokemon with him, grow a garden with him, build a snowman with him, read a list of game features with him, explore ancient ruins with him, play musicals with him, on Broadway I imagine, sit around campfires and tell stories with him, tell him he's adopted with him, gaze at the stars with him, and shut the hell up about telling me things you can do with Pikachu, please. All the things that I never got to experience in real life, like being told to shut up. But I was able to do in this virtual world with Berber, the best friend I ever had. I was obviously over-addicted to the game, but I had nothing else to use up my time with, so instead I put it all into this game, oblivious to all things happening in the real world, like the review scores for Pokemon Channel. I preferred to live my life in this Pokemon fantasy with my best friend, Berber. Berber seemed like more than just a virtually animated 3D model forced to do his actions based on programming of the game. He seemed real to me. Well, you're clearly stupid, but if I was ever sad one day, he would appear to look and act depressed too. If I was ever angry, he would show and express my rage during the play of the game too. If I needed something to cheer me up, he would act silly and leap at me and do other idiotic things too, and it surely couldn't be some kind of coincidence. Later on, when I grew older and wiser and we time-skipped through the story, I just assumed that all these strange events never really happened, and when I was younger, I had just simply imagined it. But it was still fun to pretend he was real, is something any sane person is bound to say. But as the years passed, I got more games. I had acquired a Game Boy. Technology! Which, along with it, came more Pokemon games, which allowed me to have more than just a single Pikachu. What a revelation. My interests also floated to different series, like Mario and Sonic, really diverse stuff. After playing Pokemon Channel for so many times and doing the same things over and over again, it starts to get a bit boring, which, yeah, it does. So I started playing it less and less, and other games more and more, but I still gave Pokemon Channel a play now and then. A pity play. Eventually, I changed schools, and my whole life changed. Once again, we fell into the future, but I was moved from a private Christian school to a public school, and my eyes were open to reality. It was awful, and I started to learn new things about real life, which helped me enjoy it more, and get beat up and rejected by people. But people weren't mean and cruel to me. He lies to himself. They would greet me when I passed them in the halls. I discovered I could do more than just play video games. I could draw. There were thousands of songs I could listen to. The concept of music didn't exist at my old school, and my grades started dramatically rising. Grades also did not exist at his old school. But the best part of all was that I got a new friend. A real friend. One who was flesh and blood. That's too much information, but she was funny and helped me get used to the school, which doesn't make any sense, but she was also someone I could talk to besides my parents. Granted, they stopped responding a while ago, but we both had the same immature and mock everything in every possible way kind of minds. We sucked, is what he's trying to convey, but I finally had a best friend. While I started to grow in both body and mind, Pokemon Channel was slowly forgotten, as were the commas, may they rest in peace. I moved on to greater and better games, which it must have been very hard to top the not game, but almost all things I could do in the game, I was now able to do in real life. The author boldly daring to watch actual television in the real world and spend all his money on Pokemon-related merchandise in reality. Truly, he's living the dream. But Berber was replaced by my real-life best friend, who's totally a real person and not imaginary. He and the game had become obsolete, forgotten on a dusty shelf in the corner of the room. Yeah, that'll show the game, author. For the next couple of years, life was golden. 'Tis the magic of a time skip. But I would learn something new, and I had a ton of fun with my best friend. I made a few other friends too, but no one could top my best friend. None of these people have names, also, but every now and then, I'd get a new game, get some money, go do something with my best friend. I didn't need to hear that. Draw something, listen to music. I never wished for anything more. End of paragraph. Next line. Good things never last, but bad things do, and so I will continue reading. Eventually, I had to move. Finally ran him out of town. I protested and threw a fit. Moving is the equivalent of wanting a toy at the store, apparently, but to no avail. Trying to stop the tears from falling down my face, I told my best friend, insert name here, on my last day of school. For the next few nights, I cried myself to sleep at my new home. But eventually I stopped. I shouldn't have even mentioned it, really. Having one of my reasons to live in life ripped away tore a hole, spelled with the letter W, but a hole in my heart that will never be completely healed ever, wholly. But the pain eventually became less and less, if we're gonna use technical terminology. I still had contact with my friend, What's-Her-Face, though. We both had YouTube accounts, and we would talk to each other over the internet, because YouTube is the ideal way to do that. Hope you can find the message box thing. We'd call each other, too, and have sleepovers, because his parents apparently don't care at all, and sometimes we'd see a movie together. But it hurt to not have her at school anymore. I made some new friends at my new school, even more than at my old school. They won't tell me what their names are, but we really hit it off. But none of them were as funny as my best friend. She's so great. None of them could replace her. Not even the redundant nature of this story will bring her back. Just when I thought I could get used to this lifestyle, says the person who just had a mental breakdown, but one of the most dreadful things happened. For her sake, her nameless sake, I won't post what my friend did, because why the hell would you want anyone to learn or understand the plot? Not to mention show a video game, which this story is allegedly based on. That's stupid. But she did something horrible. Just use your imagination. My mom refused to let me speak to or see her ever again, which means no more sleepovers. So, way to go, you idiot. My heart was utterly smashed into thousands of pieces. I felt like I had nothing left to live for. My best and what felt like only friend, she who shall not be named, was gone from me forever. I now sunk back into my old habits, playing video games and isolating myself from the rest of the world. Not the worst strategy I've heard, but I didn't like to go out anymore. I refused to leave my room, except to go to school. That's leaving your room. Eat, use the restroom, and visit my dad every other weekend. That being the only time of the week he can stand to be around me. But now that my best friend had been snatched away from me, and that I didn't do anything in real life anymore, I needed something to replace them, like narcotics. Searching through my ancient shelf of old games, I pulled out Pokemon Channel. That gem. I brushed the dust off the cover. It felt like it had been eternally and/or a few paragraphs since I'd gazed upon the game. I inserted the game disc into the Gamecube, grabbed my controller, and awaited to meet my old virtual friend, Berber. A tear fell down my cheek as memories fluttered back while I started at the title screen in all its majesty. After a moment of soaking in the old nostalgia, I selected Continue. I eagerly selected yes when the information appeared of my currently saved game asking if it was correct words and stuff. As the transition Pokeballs rolled across the screen, I just couldn't wait to see Berber again. When the transition was over, I appeared to be in my room. The normal cutscene where Pikachu is asleep on top of the shelf and wakes up didn't play. But at this moment, I had completely forgotten about that, so more information you should have just kept to yourself. The only thing on my mind, though, was Berber. As I searched around the room, though, he wasn't anywhere in sight. In quotes, DBD, DBD, the delibird that delivers the goods you buy from that shop in Squirtle Channel was at the door. I smiled warmly at the sight. I remembered I bought something from the channel almost every day when I was younger. Author forming bad habits at a very young age, but I thought I must have bought something the last time I played and completely forgotten about it. Curious about what was in the delivery, I eagerly headed towards the door. Pika, said a quotation. A deep moaning sound stopped me before I could reach the door. I turned the screen and saw Berber climbing out from under the bed. He looked beat up and depressed. He was under the bed, what do you expect? But I had never seen him climb out from underneath the bed before, except when he's searching for the Pokemon Mini in the beginning of the game. When he turned and saw me, a shocked expression came over his face, like it normally should. Please, by all means, don't describe the face, no one cares. "Hey, brother, it's me," I whispered, even though I knew he couldn't hear me and doesn't know what brother is because you've been calling him Berber the whole story. Also, the fact that your first reaction to seeing a Pikachu was to say, "Hey, brother," kind of worries me a little bit. But instead of a joyous look and a cheering Pika Pika, okay, he acquired an infuriated look on his face. I was a bit confused as to why he was angry. It couldn't be the neglect due to my imaginary friends, but before I could ponder at the subject, D. You don't have to include the Pokemon cries, I get it, but the Delibird called again from the door, banishing the whole incident from my thoughts, because why the fuck would you want to include plot in this story? I turned and opened the door. I thought we already did that, actually, but never mind. I turned and opened the door. I was comforted when the Delibird handed over the box. I love boxes. And Berber smiled and waved as Delibird flew off. In quotes, a package arrived with merchandise from Shop and Squirtle. I quickly pressed A as the message appeared. I wondered what was inside as Berber leaned inside the box and took out the item, being the hoarder he is. "But you got a Pikachu TV Z," it said in caps. Also, the Pikachu TV Z has been displayed, so congrats. A menacing and quite gruesome looking Pikachu TV was set up in replace of my old Voltorb TV. It looked like a Pikachu head facing towards you with its jaws wide open, and inside its mouth was the TV screen with its fangs hanging out over the top and bottom. It looked like the skin was tearing and ripping apart at pieces, like the TV screen was too large for its mouth, and I was a bit shocked at how scary the TV looked, which is why I'm just rambling on about it constantly, but managed to not explain much. In quotes again, "You got Red Wallpaper Z." What a creatively named wallpaper. The wallpaper has been displayed. I gasped when I saw that the wallpaper was put up. It was crooked, but it was also dark red, like dried blood. Just going straight for it. Pikachus, well, that's not spelled right, but them with sick, twisted smiles were repeated all across it. They each were bright red, like fleshly drawn blood. That lines up with the other sentence that says drawn blood. Damn it. I was beginning to worry, but that won't stop me from walking into my demise. "You got Pikachu Doll Z. The doll has been displayed." But I winced with fear when I saw the morbid Pikachu placed on top of the shelves, because how could you not be afraid of this monster? But it had the same eerie grin as the Pikachus on the wallpaper, except with long fangs. Its eyes were small, ruby red, and dilated. The tip of its tail curled inward like a hook, and it had sharp-looking claws, and of course, numerous streaks of blood. Of course, there would be, and they ran the length of its body. Frankly, he was being a tryhard about the whole thing. "You got Pikachu Doll Z. The doll has been displayed." This repeats 2 more times in the story because God forbid we summarize anything. The same sequence happened over and over again though, until the entire room was filled with the disturbing Pikachu dolls. They replaced all the other dolls. Little did the author know, those other dolls moved out months ago. But Berber got up and looked around the room. He nodded in satisfaction and walked towards the TV. Okay, I sat in my chair. You don't get a chair in the game. But stricken with fear though, it's not like the console was built with a power button. You're basically trapped. Even though it had been years since I've played the game, I knew these items were never in it, with me being the clear Pokemon expert here. But Pika, a threatening and commanding call, came from Pikachu. I didn't do it justice, but he was standing in front of the TV, giving me a glare. I knew he wanted me to go over there. Having no spine, he walked to the TV and turned it on. It opened to the report channel, like normal, except when it doesn't. But to my horror, the screen looked like it had blood dripping down it. The author took out a large loan on blood for this story apparently, but I changed the channels and they all looked that way with the blood. I quickly opened up my diary. I'm gonna start a coalition to keep diaries out of these fucking stories because they've gone too far, but opened up my diary, which in this game is a start menu, and clicked on the TV's lab. I chose Voltorb TV, but as soon as I did, my diary closed without me pressing B. Berber was staring at me with his threatening glare and those adorable cheeks, and shook his head disapprovingly. Luckily, he's the size of a boot, so he's not that threatening. Berber came back to the TV and changed it to the Fortune channel. This channel seemed normal, except for the blood dripping down the screen. Thank you. Choose your cookie is stupid to say without any context, for future reference to any authors out there. But the words drifted by the bottom of the TV screen. I chose the top one, like I always do. The cookie floated down into the Chansey's hands and cracked open. Do you really want to know your fortune? The words appeared on the screen. I froze with fear. Something about that fortune seemed eerie. Which part? The Chansey talking part? Was that eerie? No, it's not. But it did appear that the Chansey on the screen was laughing. So how about that? Also, Berber changed the channel yet again. That son of a bitch. He set it to the relaxation channel. But instead of the fluffy Mareeps, what greeted me thank you typo, but there were morbid Pikachus that looked just like the dolls jumping over the fence. Missed a comma or two in that thing. But I quickly pressed B and went back to the center of the room. Normally, Berber would turn around and motion me to come back and watch it with him, but this time, he didn't seem to care. Well, maybe he doesn't like you. Give that some thought. I walked over to my old painting, a beautiful colored Jirachi surrounded by a cute Pikachu border hung against the wall. I sighed with relief, because he's such a narcissist, but at least one thing was still normal. I took a few moments to stare at the old painting, mostly because I didn't want to look at the gruesome wallpaper or horrifying dolls. And I forgot how to unplug the console or turn off the TV, so I guess I gotta keep going. In quotes. Berber is looking at the painting too. Chills went through my spine as that message appeared, even though it was normal for your Pikachu to stare at the painting with you. I had pressed B, and sure enough, Berber was standing in front of the painting. It seemed like he had a sad expression, like he was remembering long lost memories. That seems very unlikely, unless the author is psychic. But he turned to me, still with the same depressed expression. He looked like he's about to cry. I felt sorry for him and wished there was something I could do to cheer him up, which I expected would be the end of the story, but it's still going on. Berber walked up to me and asked me a question, because it's totally normal for your Pikachu to ask you a question every now and then, but what made my blood chill was the fact that I'm a reptilian, and also he asked, Berber wants to know if you still love him. It had a circle, yes, and an X, no option. Berber had never asked me that before. I immediately clicked O. He smiled and then bent over, laughing. I was a bit confused. How could he bend over if he's so small? But also, why was he having a laughing fit? When he was done laughing, he looked back up at me with an evil smile. A message appeared at the bottom of the screen. Berber knows when you're lying. So he's Santa. Pikachu turned back to watch the TV. Now go ahead and throw your life away, Pikachu, I don't care. By this point, I didn't know what to do anymore. I knew for sure that all this wasn't supposed to be happening. What with my astute abilities of analysis, I thought that maybe if I restarted my Gamecube, everything would go back to normal. I mean, sure, that doesn't work in any other spooky story, but maybe this one will be the exception. So I got up and I reached for the restart button, but when I pressed it, nothing happened. I pressed it a second time, and still nothing. Text appeared. The game cannot be reset right now. My heart stopped beating for a second. Imagine Pokemon Channel running 24/7. After dumbly staring at the screen for a solid minute, I sat back down and decided I would continue playing, you stupid bastard. But, in quotes, might as well see where this goes. My bet's on your demise, or hopefully credits. I just looked around the room for about a minute. Other than the wallpaper, dolls, and TV, everything seemed to be the same. I tried to smile. No one can see your smile in the game. I looked up at the old Pokemon Mini and the posters, but I couldn't bring myself to. No one likes a sandbagger, author. The normally cute and cheerful music seemed to make the room dark and disturbing, because that's how music works. It looked as if all the morbid Pikachu dolls had their eyes focused on me, like they were about to reach out and grab me. Luckily, Pikachu's arms are about a pinky's length, so you're gonna be okay. But they looked like they were gonna grab me and then slowly tear apart and devour my flesh. That's a very vivid imagination you have. Berber wants to go outside, the needy twit. The message appeared at the top of the screen. Before I could do anything though, Berber went outside and the game forced me to follow him. My breath caught in my thought when I went outside. Wait, the sky was blood red, with even darker red clouds swirling in it. Strewn all across the lawn were dead Pokemon corpses that were dead. I couldn't tell what many of these were. What with the only Pokemon game me having ever played is this one. But most of their limbs were torn off, their faces shredded, entrails everywhere. I felt sick, like I was about to throw up. Berber circled around them, then turned to me and gave me an evil grin. He walked up to me and asked a question, in quotes. Berber wants to know if you like what he's done to the place. Yuriofwind would like to know why the fuck you're talking in third person, Pikachu. Also, the detective thing is a little weird, but I immediately clicked X. His sick grin deepened even more. He walked over to a skitty corpse and threw it at me. That's just poor sportsmanship. But its body parts broke off and flew everywhere as it bounced off the screen, cause that's how television and cameras work. After many agonizing minutes of being forced to watch Berber toy with the dead body parts because he lost the remote and can't turn off the TV, and I can't turn my head to the side because that's just a quitter's mentality. But Pikachu walked over to the garden. When we stepped into the garden, 2 plants were fully grown. But instead of fruits, they had grown Pikachu heads. I'm fairly sure that's not how trees work, but Berber plucked one and started to eat it. A standard reaction to seeing Pikachu. But my lunch started to rise up my throat, which is where I keep it, thankfully, but I forced it back down. I tried to turn away from the gruesome imaginary sight, but something glued my eyes to the screen. Was it actual glue, or do you just hate yourself? But after taking his time though, Berber walked over and ate the other head, which went straight to his thighs, and once he was done, he cast a wicked smile and leapt out of the garden. Again, I forced to follow him. Berber was apparently done messing around outside and went straight inside. I was hoping he was done and we could just stay inside. I now much preferred the morbid dolls over the body parts, which sounds just like discrimination to me, but he wasn't done showing me the world he had created yet. Almost as soon as we went inside, Berber went immediately to the back door. Guess who was forced to follow yet again? Is it the end of the story? Is the end of the story forced to follow yet again? When we went outside, there weren't any more corpses, much to my relief. but the sky was still an ominous blood red, so damn it. When I tried to go back inside, he wouldn't let me. Berber would just turn and give a disapproving shake of his head, so I was forced to stand there. God forbid we stand up to the angry electric rat. The Viridian Forest bus pulled up and Berber walked to it without me even clicking on it. He's clearly had enough of your shit. But the transition played normally, the bus riding over the map to the Viridian Forest. But when we got there, the whole forest was on fire, cause why not? Dead Pokemon were lying everywhere as the trees wildly burned, their bodies charred black by the flames. Berber seemed unaffected by the blazing fire, so he skipped over to the patch of mushrooms. I'd peg him as one to skip. They looked like they were bleeding. I'm gonna suggest the author get some glasses, cause you're seeing stuff. But BRVR ate one without asking for permission. How dare he? And he gave a satisfied nod when he was done. Then he ran over to the bell that starts the Pokemon concert, but instead of Berber being surrounded by Clefairies, he was surrounded by those morbid Pikachu plushies. Not sure plushies make for a good backup performance, but okay, Pikachu's going with what he's got. Using the bells, they played the most haunting and blood-chilling tune I had ever heard. I was awestruck. It sounded so beautiful, yet so horrifying. It was high-pitched and made my ears ache, but I was in a trance and couldn't think to turn the volume down. That's a fucking excuse. But after what seemed like years, the play was finally over. But this story isn't. Glancing around, Berber seemed satisfied with the burning forest and headed back towards the bus. Again, I was forced to stand outside my house while I awaited the next horrors Berber would inflict upon my eyes. Don't go ahead and take this moment of self-control to avoid that situation though, through a variety of methods like kicking the Gamecube or throwing it out a window. But hey, forget it, we need at least a couple more paragraphs. I thought he would want to take the Mount Snowfall bus, but he had other ideas. He just let the bus just pass on by, like a monster. Instead, he decided to take the bus to Cobalt Beach next. Same simple transition, same horrifying scene. The beach was littered with pieces of corpses of the Pokemon you would normally find roaming around there. It then became apparent to me that Berber didn't like other Pokemon. You know, because of the killing thing. Also, if we could not talk about Pokemon limbs, that'd be really nice, because it's kind of icky. We then played a game of tic-tac-toe, truly a fate worse than death, but instead of rocks, we used internal organs for the pieces. Why? Because look at how edgy this story is. Berber beat me by a long shot. Although, that was because I couldn't think straight using the entrails as X's and O's while being surrounded by dead corpses, not to mention the PlayStation 3 lag. He laughed at me. Like, this was all normal and supposed to be happening. Then, for a brief moment, a look of regret and sadness swept over his face. I felt a longing to reach out and comfort him. By all means, do it. He'll stab you, but go on. I used the C-stick to pet him, though don't get used to that petting because it'll get removed in the localization. But as soon as I put the cursor on him and it touched him, his normal infuriated and demented look came back. He ran off over to the fishing area with a little person calling me unwilling following behind. What? Berber stood on his rock and threw his fishing line into the blood ocean, waiting for a bite. I did nothing. You're a great main character, by the way. I forgot to tell you that earlier in the story. But there was nothing I could do. It's not like I have a controller or am playing a video game. But he turned and gave me a menacing glare like I was supposed to be helping him or somehow interact within this video game. Buttons. And that's when I remembered the bait. Uh-oh. I clicked on the jar labeled bait. An amateur mistake, but instead of a chocolate glazed donut, I got a rotting brain. It was falling apart and covered in greenish brown mold, yet it was still throbbing Please never say that again, but I quickly tossed it into the ocean, and with it, my hopes for plot. Shortly afterwards, Berber caught something on his line. With a great yank, the creature came flying out of the ocean. The general idea of fishing, yes, I get it. But I swear to God, this creature shall forever haunt my dreams. Hi, Brock. I wish. Instead, it looked like an oversized dark purple Magikarp, but it was foaming at the mouth, while a green acidic blood poured from out numerous gashes all along its body. We're going a little heavy on the gore part here, author senpai. Talking about fucking Magikarp. But multiple organs clung to the many spikes sticking out from his body. Parts of its scales had been scrapped away, exposing muscle underneath, and some parts of the muscle looked like they had been eaten, leaving bones sticking out. Alright, Sir Anxolot. It flopped around and gasped for air, while disturbing, gurgling sounds emitted from its mouth, which couldn't have anything to do with him being out of water and on land. I screamed when I saw that vile creature. Beaver turned to me as if he heard me, and grinning, he slowly climbed down the rock, taking much time as possible to let the wretched creature suffer that much more. Then, he started to eat Magikarp, cause someone had to do it, but while it was still alive, I screamed again, and covered my mouth as my eyes were forced to watch. You did that wrong, you should have covered the other thing, but forced to watch the gruesome sight. It only had moved his hands in the correct way. None of this would have happened. Once he was done with his meal, he turned back to me and smiled a happy, playful smile. I couldn't believe this monster was once my close, virtual, not real friend that I looked forward to seeing every day after school. Remember that plot point 7 years ago? After that traumatizing event, Berber cheerfully skipped along down the beach back to the bus stop, singing Pikachu. His merriment made the situation that much more horrifying, and he'll probably never stop talking on the bus ride. While waiting for the Mount Snowfall bus, Berber stood in the middle of the walkway, staring at me. His face was blank and showed no signs of emotion, hence the word blank. Even though I knew he couldn't hear me, I whispered like an idiot anyways. W, comma, why are you doing this? 2 dots, question mark, exclamation point. A tear started to fill down my face. Berber made this world to please you. My blood turned to ice when that message appeared at the top of the screen. Berber cast me another sick, wicked grin that stretched from cheek to cheek. More tears started to sneak their way down my face. Sneaking implies stealth, by the way, which, you're just saying things out loud. But the Mount Snowfall bus finally arrived. I don't know if I was happy at the sight or petrified at the thought of facing another gruesome scene. One thing is for sure, the author needs to Google where the power switch is located, cause that would solve at least a couple of these problems. Same thing as before, cause fuck coming up with new ideas. Innocent transitions, not so innocent sights. Whatever that means. Frostbitten carcasses lay strewn out ungloriously across the frozen land, as opposed to the dead bodies that were posed to look good. But more half buried in snow. Words. Surprisingly, there was no blood or entrails lying about. Goody. Maybe we shifted authors. So the area had a more sad atmosphere than morbid. Berber slowly walked over to where the Kelkion and Jiggly would normally sing, but since they were dead and buried under the snow, who know where their place? I changed my mind about that author thing. But Berber sang, son of a bitch, the most beautiful yet saddest song I had ever heard. His harmonious voice sounded like violins playing the most tear-jerking tune I had ever heard. Pikachu, well known for his contributions, to the arts of music. He had a depressed and sorrowful, yet forceful expression while he sang the tune, which is just what the song sounded like. I couldn't control the tears that started flooding down my face while he sang. Don't puss out on me now, main character, but my poor emotional heart broke in two listening to this sorrow-drenched melody, laying it on slightly thick. After what seemed an eternity, Berber final finished. This sentence is gonna need a little work though, but he looked me dead straight in the eyes with the most sorrowful and depressed and utterly hopeless expression anyone had ever seen. Ever, said the dumb main character. I longed so much to hold him in my arms and comfort you. And no, you don't, cause the little bastard is just gonna stab you. But I quickly turned around and ran towards the second half of Mount Snowfall. We just stood in front of the ruins of truth for many moments. Berber just stood dead still while staring at the ruins. It just occurred to me that perhaps a Pokemon isn't the most interesting villain to base a story around, because they can't really talk. But then he glanced at me, a deep, meanful look in his eyes, and ran inside. It was jet black inside, like it was supposed to be. Whatever you say, man. But he used Thunderbolt to light the electric flowers, which caused the entire ruins to bright up, and all along the walls, ceiling, and doors, many different words are written in blood. Help me. Why? I must die. Kill me. It's so cold. I'm so lonely. Where is she? Come back. Why can't I die? They sound like they were lifted out of deadly premonition. Berber walked over to the other side of the ruins, where the true or false tablet stood. I was forced to click on it. Abandoned by his best friend years ago, to be replaced by a new best friend and left to rot alone in this virtual world. True or false? Author finally understood what all this meant. It only took you like 40 minutes. Son of a bitch. But all those words on the walls, they were from Berber. Who taught him how to write? This was all my fault though, correct? I left him, my best friend, to die alone. I don't think he would have died, but you should feel bad about yourself regardless. But no, he couldn't die if he wanted to. He was forced to drag out his miserable existence over the years, having to watch the same channels over and over again, and talking to the Pokemon who keep sneaking into his yard. I didn't blame him for wanting revenge on me. I deserve this. Note to self, author is a masochist. I slapped myself across the face. What was I thinking? About the slapping yourself part? Don't ask me. But Berber and Pokemon Channel was just a game. Well, one's a game and the other a freeloader, but I wasn't supposed to devote my life to them. They were only meant to be created to amuse and entertain the mind of a child/adult person, and of course so Nintendo can keep rolling around in money. I took a minute to ponder over my last statement though. They weren't real. I thought about all the things Berber had done. Traumatize me, take my commas away, and get revenge for abandoning him so long. Hell, this was all just too real. You're not selling Yuriofwind on it at all, but it's so real. But I selected O for true. Finally got around to the question. I admitted to abandoning Berber and leaving him alone to rot. Wow, what a stand-up guy you are. Instead of the tablet sinking back into the ground, it glowed green as if in approval with me. The screen slowly faded to black except for Berber. He stood in the center of the screen with a tired, angry, yet very sad expression. I didn't know what to think of him anymore. I hated him, and I wished I could kill him. It's a little... Okay, calm down. But I felt sorry and wanted with all my heart to help him. Either or, you can't have both. But hey, Berber feels the same way about you. Those messages didn't shock me anymore. If anything, I was expecting it. After a few long moments of just staring at each other, I finally started to lose it and talked in caps. What are you going to do with me now? Question mark, exclamation point. If it's watch Pichu Brothers again, I'm leaving. Berber wants you to suffer the same way he did, the game answered. Nice that they installed a speaker on that disc. But he casted me one last wicked grin. The wildest and most grotesque grin he had ever seen. Something you'll just have to imagine. And the screen cut to black. After a moment, the title screen appeared. The continue button was gone though. I sighed in relief that this horrifying reunion was over, although it could have ended much, much quicker if you weren't fucking about. So I got up and I looked back at my desk. On it was a Pikachu Doll Z, the end. So what's the point of the story? I don't think there was one. Don't play Pokemon Channel might be the point. I don't know. This has been Bullshit Creepypasta Storytime. Thank you for watching. Hey everyone, welcome back to Endslate, where the video is not over. I'm sorry. I know, it's been over 40 minutes. This is the second ridiculously long story I've done in kind of a short amount of time, and it's dangerous on the soul. It doesn't feel good. I need to take a break from super long stories and talk about normal stuff, like a Gaming Mysteries or something from China. A bootleg of sorts. But enough of that. Let's move on to the magical world of Endslate, where I recommend videos and then don't force you to click on anything. The first thing I'd like to recommend on Endslate is the last Gaming Mysteries I did on this channel, which was a Gaming Mysteries in the beta of Kirby 64. Another video I'd like to recommend is, I don't know, the last Bullshit Creepypasta Storytime I did on this channel, which was Sonic.exe 2. Electric Boogaloo. And then the other video is gonna be some other video. I don't want to think about it before I have a non-flashback. I've been working on other videos, for the record. I just got distracted by the long bad story, but those will be coming soon enough. Thank you for your patience. I hope you enjoyed this video, by the way, if I didn't say that. But on to the bottom of the screen. Nico does the art. Not just for... Oh, my heater kicked on. Bad timing. Nico does the art, though, for lots of people, myself included. You should go and check Nico out. Go on and see his art, and his intros, and his art. And then, he has social media, and then I have social media, Twitter and Facebook, so, yeah, Kamen Rider. And then, if you like the video and you want to like it, or share, subscribe, it's appreciated. That's cool, but I'm not gonna force you to do it, because I feel uncomfortable asking people to do stuff. Next time on Endslate, it's not gonna be a long story, because my heart needs to heal for at least a couple of weeks. See you guys next time on Endslate.